Hello everyone, welcome to what's happening in Brazil. Let's start our show with the latest news from the country.
Arthur Duval, a São Paulo state deputy, is facing 12 requests to remove him from office after the leakage of male chauvinist audios on Ukrainian women. Duval went to Europe on February 27th. According to him, he went there to bring humanitarian aid to the refugees. He had posted a picture of him near empty bottles and had said he was preparing Molotov cocktails for the Ukrainian forces. However, audios sent to an online group of friends show another side of his trip. Duval said that the refugees line was full of beautiful women, classified the Ukrainian women as gold diggers, and said they are easy to pick up because they are poor. The speeches caused outrage and had repercussions even in the international media. With that, Duval gave up running for governor of São Paulo in the next elections. Former Judge Sérgio Moro, an aspiring candidate for Brazil's presidency, was until recently Duval's ally, but broke with the deputy. March 8th was marked by feminist protests in many Brazilian cities. Since the COVID-19 pandemic arrived in the country, this is the first Women's Day in which most of Brazil's population is vaccinated. The mobilizations were marked by the motto, Bolsonaro Nevermore. In addition to the struggle in defense of women's lives, the protests also denounced the return of famine and the worsening of the general population's quality of life. And the protests were not limited to March 8th. On the day before, women linked to Brazil's landless workers' movement held demonstrations in front of the buildings of multinational companies that produce pesticides, protesting against the industry lobby.
A new group of isolated indigenous people was discovered in the south of Amazonas state. They have zero contact with non-indigenous people. Institutions for defense of native peoples demand measures to protect this group and warn about the risk of genocide.
An expedition by the National Indian Foundation, also known as FUNAI, identified a group of isolated native people until recently unknown by authorities in the south of Amazonas state. FUNAI confirmed the existence of the group in September 2021, but the information was made public in February this year. During the expedition into the forest, servants heard the voices of members of the group, but couldn't record images of them. Indigenous individuals and researchers fear that the delay of FUNAI to take measures of protection can put the group at risk.
Without the state's protection, anyone can go there and kill them. It's easy in the Amazon, they kill well-known people. Why don't they go after the isolated indigenous people? Because they don't exist. They are only in FUNAI data. Who is going to prove it? A man goes there, brings a lot of gunmen, they enter these lands. They are people from the same region, land grabbers. They disappear with the native people and they will say, look, they don't exist, they weren't here. This can happen. We have stories that demonstrate this in the Amazon.
Because these isolated groups do not keep contact with non-indigenous people, they are more susceptible to respiratory diseases. Flu can be lethal. The newly confirmed isolated native people are in the city of Lábrea, south of Amazonas, in the Purus River Basin. There, the deforestation rate is one of the highest in the country. In that region, the COVID-19 vaccination rate is under 30%. The local indigenous movement warns of the possibility of contact with non-indigenous people at any given time.
We want a vigilance base there urgently, a base to protect the land. Also, we want a health vigilance plan in the region.
Exposed to environmental criminals and infectious diseases, this group is at risk of disappearing. To Wellington Figueiredo, one of the country's pioneers in working with isolated indigenous people, the disappearance of these groups would be an irreparable loss to Brazil's cultural heritage.
The isolated indigenous communities are stable and complex. They have rules and community and individual duties depending on the role each person has in the society concerning security, eating, religiousness. They are very complex and the contact with non-indigenous will end it all.
In Rio de Janeiro, a place previously used as a cemetery during the slave period, is now a memory center for the Afro-Brazilian population. Check out on Cultural Talk the story of the Pretos Novos Cemetery, which turns 26 in 2022.
The historical erasure almost vanished away the memories of black people in Brazil, but the resistance keeps the history alive. A proof of it is that in 1996, the archaeological site Pretos Novos Cemetery was discovered in the port area of Rio de Janeiro.
The discovery of this cemetery is fundamental to all this region. It's the tangible proof that the slavery happened. Every story about the cemetery shows exactly how the burials took place, which actually weren't burials really. The bodies were thrown here where we are, in the Pretos Novos Cemetery.
The cemetery was found by any chance. Rafael Anjos was a teenager when her parents decided to renovate their house. In the middle of the work, pieces of skeletons were found. That was the beginning of the rescue of this whole story.
We were told to inform the City Hall that by its turn called archaeologists from the Brazilian Institute of Archaeology. They evaluated the pieces and concluded that they were in fact human bones. The archaeologists stayed here for 8 or 9 months. Then they gave a positive answer that we were living on an old Pretos Novos cemetery.
To mark the 26 years of this important finding, Pretos Novos Institute created a circuit through the so-called Small Africa. The route is 2 kilometers long and comprises the Valongo Wharf, the main port of entry for enslaved Africans in Brazil.
I came to take this tour with my daughter. I brought her here so she can get to know our forgotten story, and it was very interesting.
There were moments when I got emotional because, to me, it was to come close to ancestry.
And now it's time for Brazilianese.
Hoje nem vem de garfo.
Today I'll be making a soup. This recipe here is made with almost nothing. It's a bread, eggs, seasoning, water and olive oil soup. That's it. I love this type of recipe in which we use and reuse what we have at home. In this one we'll reuse leftover bread. Yesterday's, the day before yesterday's bread. I'll slice it. This will be the basis of the soup. I'll start by toasting the bread. I'll place them on the frying pan and turn the heat on very low, so that the slices toast equally and don't burn, just like this, with no oil or anything. Here I'll start making the broth, the soup proper. Olive oil, garlic. I'll also leave it on low heat, in order for it to be well seasoned, for us to allow all the aroma from the seasonings to be released. I'll begin with this garlic here on low fire. It will give scent to the olive oil and will slowly release the flavor. Salt. I will add a chopped stick of cilantro. For those who don't like cilantro, you can switch it for parsley. 1 bay leaf. An important tip is, don't let the garlic turn brown. My aromatic base is ready. I'm gonna add water, lots of water. I'm already taking the bread out. It's toasted on both sides, ready to go into the soup. I'm adding the slices of bread to the bottom of the dish. I made a nest of bread. The egg will put right on top here. Have a look, the broth has already boiled. I'll turn the heat down and put the eggs in. You can cook the egg however much you like. For me, it's more than ready. I took the egg here, I'll remove the excess broth and put it on top of the bread nest. Now I'll turn the heat up again and wrap the soup up with cilantro, chives, black pepper and stir it up. Then all you have to do is put this broth in the bowl.
Did you like the show? So hit the like button and share with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to receive notifications. We'll see you next week.